And we are back for episode 6.8. Our episode begins with Lady Crane on stage and everyone admiring her acting abilities. She finishes, goes backstage, and finds a dying Arya. Lady Crane then takes Arya in and rapidly nurses her back to health, giving her milk of the poppy, and Arya falls asleep. Now we are past the book Arya story, so we have no idea if Arya will befriend the book equivalent character of Lady Crane, Lady Stork, or if Arya will get stabbed and be nursed back to health. It sort of seems unlikely. The book Arya story has instead set up some sort of political turmoil in Braavos that's rather difficult to make heads or tails of. From Arya's perspective, we know that Braavos is run by a Sea Lord who is sick, and the House of Black and White has been having Arya spy around the city to get an idea of who the new Sea Lord may be. A new order seems to be coming to Braavos, with its future uncertain. Additionally, there is the mysterious influence of the Iron Bank of Braavos, who chooses the new Sea Lord. The bank is made up of various voting shareholders called keyholders, and several keyholders are present at the play where Arya killed Raff the Sweetling. This is on top of the Iron Bank being in negotiations with the Iron Throne over repayment at this play as well. So all in all, it seems rather likely that Arya's actions at the play, whether planned by the House of Black and White or not, will influence some larger political situations in Braavos, and how that will in turn affect Westeros is anyone's guess. Next we get an extra scene of some Brotherhood Without Banners members sitting around and talking about kissing, and one tries to shove his fingers in another one's butt. The Hound then comes in and kills them all. So in the book, assuming the Hound is still alive, we have yet to see him return to a life of violence. And this would be a somewhat difficult shift in character for him, assuming he is the gravedigger on the Quiet Isle. He has essentially chosen a life of tranquility among pacifists. The elder brother says that the Hound is dead, and that Sandor Clegane is at rest. Many fans have taken this to mean that Sandor Clegane is at peace. If something brings him out of this peace and back into violence, we have no notion of what it may be. The Brotherhood Without Banners is on good terms with the Quiet Isle, and the Quiet Isle is very difficult to invade as it's protected by a maze-like causeway. A violent Hound may indeed return, but we have no plot or foreshadowing of this at all as of yet. Next we jump to Slaver's Bay for an extra scene of a Red Priest preaching that Dany is the chosen one, and Tyrion and Varys appreciating the booming commerce and peace that has come to Meereen. Tyrion chalks this up to the deal that he's made with the Temple of R'hllor, and Varys then leaves town to make allies. So none of this has happened in the book. It is true that in Volantis and some other cities that some of the followers of R'hllor do think Dany is Azor Ahai. However, Tyrion specifically notes that dealing with fanatics is dangerous after the book-only character of Haldon Halfmaester wonders if the piety of R'hllor followers could be exploited. The only leaders to use the religion of the Red God have been Stannis and Beric Dondarrion, and one can argue about whether the choice to use the religion has been to their benefit or detriment. That said, there is a fleet of Volantene ships heading to Slaver's Bay who are filled with R'hllor-following soldiers, so it does seem likely that these followers will play a major role in the wars to come. Now, Varys leaving to find allies is also something that doesn't happen in the book. After Tyrion's escape, Varys goes missing, and it's assumed that he spent his time mostly hiding in the walls of the Red Keep, though it's certainly possible that he left and returned to the city. We hear nothing of Varys trying to forge alliances for his cause being Aegon in the book. Varys' specialty seems to be spying and creating chaos, while forging alliances seems to be mostly in the hands of Illyrio and Jon Connington. Next we get an extra scene of Qyburn informing Cersei that her cousin Lancel has arrived with some sparrows. Cersei goes to meet them, and they demand that Cersei return to the company of the High Sparrow. Cersei refuses and insists that a violent confrontation will occur if they persist. A sparrow attacks the mountain, and he is killed immediately. Lancel then realizes that the mountain is an unstoppable force, and he and his sparrows flee in panic. Now, none of this happens in the book. In the book, Cersei is in the Red Keep, already attended by a septa and novices. She is constantly being watched by the Faith, so there isn't much justification to recall her into the custody of the High Sparrow. But this scene does make one wonder about what the High Sparrow hopes to accomplish. In the book, Qyburn's monster, Sir Robert Strong, has been revealed as Cersei's champion, and suspicion is already about that Sir Robert Strong is actually Gregor Clegane, the Mountain. Now, this brings up some serious implications for the Lannister relationship with the Dornish. The Lannisters promise to execute the Mountain, and this flaunts the Lannisters' lie to the Dornish. But besides this, Sir Robert Strong is clearly an extremely formidable foe. Thus, the High Sparrow must know that a champion from the Faith is likely to lose. Does the High Sparrow care about this fact? Does he have another play that will increase his power? Is he considering the Dornish situation? How does Margaery's trial play into things? Or does he truly believe that the gods will guide the hands of justice? We don't know, but at this moment in the story, it looks like Cersei will indeed win, and the High Sparrow likely knows this. Next we get an extra scene where Brienne and Podrick arrive at Riverrun. They are quickly captured by Lannister forces, after which Pod goes to talk to Bronn about fighting and whether or not Jaime is going to have sex with Brienne. Jaime and Brienne then have a reunion where Jaime reveals that he never thought Brienne would actually fulfill her quest to protect Sansa, but tells her bravo nonetheless. Brienne then says that she serves Sansa and that she would like the opportunity to treat with the Blackfish to convince him to leave Riverrun and march the Tully army north. Jaime agrees, and Brienne tries to return Oathkeeper, but Jaime tells her that it's hers. Brienne then heads over to the Blackfish, where she at first has difficulty convincing him that Sansa is alive and that she is faithfully serving her. After arguing a bunch and reading a letter from Sansa, Blackfish is finally convinced that Brienne is telling the truth, but it's still of no good. Sansa is too distant a relative and too distant a cause. Riverrun is Blackfish's home, and he will defend it. So in the book, Brienne and Jaime do finally have a reunion, but it's under very different circumstances. It has nothing to do with the Blackfish or Riverrun, and Pod and Bronn are not there. Pod being a captive, and Bronn acting as Lord of Stokeworth. So Brienne's adventures eventually end with her captured by the Brotherhood Without Banners, who are now under the command of a Lady Stoneheart. Lady Stoneheart is the resurrected corpse of Catelyn. Stoneheart tells Brienne that she must either kill Jaime Lannister, or she, Pod, and a man named Sir Hyle will be executed, and so Brienne reluctantly agrees to kill Jaime. Meanwhile, Jaime is in the Riverlands negotiating a peace settlement between the Brackens and the Blackwoods. Like here in the show, Brienne approaches boldly and is apprehended and brought to Jaime. However, when the two meet, Brienne says that she has found Sansa and that Jaime needs to come with her alone or else the Hound will kill her. Now clearly Brienne is lying, as Sansa is in the Vale, and fans are uncertain what exactly Brienne is planning. It appears that Brienne is luring Jaime away to be killed, and we know that a Brotherhood Without Banners member named Lem Lemoncloak currently has the Hound's helmet, so it may be that he's going to be a stand-in for the Hound in some sort of ruse. But past that, we don't have much idea on how Brienne is going to get out of this predicament. Now in the book, there is no attempt by anyone to get the Tully army to fight for them. We aren't sure of the exact size of the Tully army. Jaime says hundreds in the book, but it's likely in the low hundreds, and the Blackfish purposely was keeping a bare-bones group of men so that food supplies would not be exhausted. Besides this, to get to somewhere like Winterfell, the Tully soldiers would need at least a couple months to march there, and would have to get by Moat Cailin, which is near impossible. Not to mention, it would seem unlikely that Jaime would allow them to go, as in the book, the Boltons are still aligned with the Lannisters. We next get an extra scene where Cersei comes to the throne room and is forced to go to the gallery, and then Tommen announces that trials by combat will be banned in the Seven Kingdoms, and now 7 Septons will judge the guilt of the accused. Cersei then asks Qyburn if he has looked into some rumors she heard, and Qyburn says that the rumors are quite true. This of course is a discussion about whether wildfire stashes still exist. Now, none of this has happened in the book. In the book, Cersei, when we last left her, is less than 5 days away from her trial, which, as far as we know, is by combat. It's Margaery's trial, on the other hand, that will be judged by the faith, but we aren't really sure what this entails. All the characters say that the case against Margaery is rather weak, which, knowing George R.R. Martin's writing style, means Margaery is in grave danger. When we look at things, Margaery is really in a lose-lose situation with Cersei's trial. If Cersei loses her trial by battle, her incest is proven and Tommen is proven to be a bastard, and thus Margaery ceases to be queen. However, if Cersei wins, this means that Cersei did not bear false witness against Margaery. In the eyes of the faith, this is evidence that Margaery is guilty of fornication, and thus there is grounds to find Margaery guilty. Yes, most of our main characters and the reader don't extrapolate truth from the results of a trial by battle, but this is the faith of the Seven, which is currently filled with zealots, which very much puts Margaery in danger. As for Qyburn's investigation, in the book we have no sign that Qyburn has been sent to investigate anything. That said, there is plenty of wildfire left out there in our story. Jaime said that many stashes went missing after Robert's Rebellion, and we don't know how much was left over from the Battle of the Blackwater. Additionally, in the book, Cersei had the Tower of the Hand burned down for fear that it was filled with secret passages, and for this job, she had the alchemists brew up some more wildfire. Not to mention, Cersei's on very good terms with the pyromancers and could conceivably ask them to brew more if she could get a message to them. So yes, wildfire is definitely something that could come back to our story. We then jump to Slaver's Bay, where we have an extra scene of Tyrion trying to get Missandei and Grey Worm to drink and tell some jokes. Their merriment is then interrupted by an invasion by sea from Astapor, Yunkai, and Volantis. Now in the book, there is no surprise invasion from anyone. Astapor is a destroyed city, effectively burned to the ground with its survivors displaced as refugees. Yunkai marches by land to Meereen, surrounds the city and begins a siege fairly early on in our story, before Dany even left on her dragon. Volantis is the city that ends up sending its forces by sea, though everyone is well aware of this. If there is a surprise for the Battle of Meereen, it will be on which side Volantis will join, Dany's side or Yunkai, along with the surprise arrival of the Ironborn, and perhaps other neighboring forces like the Dothraki and the Lázarene. And then we get a scene from the book where Jaime figures out how to end the siege of Riverrun by threatening Edmure. In this scene, Jaime brings up Cat and Cersei as fierce women who would do anything for their children, and Edmure becomes enraged at any discussion of his sister. Jaime then says he would do anything for Cersei because he loves her, and the best way to get back to her is to win here. And thus Jaime threatens to launch Edmure's newborn child on a trebuchet if Edmure does not command the surrender of Riverrun. Now there are some similarities of this scene to the book, but some big differences as well. Jaime never brings up Cat and Cersei with Edmure, and certainly never admits to incest, as there are others in the room. In fact, at this point in the story, Jaime is rather uncertain if he still is in love with Cersei. Jaime instead, quite mercilessly, piles on the consequences of Edmure not surrendering, claiming that he will attack Riverrun using first the Riverlanders and then the Freys, who are all disposable to him. The Westermen would come last to sop up the mess. Riverrun would then be torn to the ground with the river diverted so that there would be no legacy to the castle. Finally, Edmure's child would be delivered by trebuchet. To finish off the threat, Jaime has a singer play the Rains of Castamere, a song that evokes the Lannisters' lack of mercy against House Rayne, as well as evoking the Red Wedding. And Jaime feels the need to be this brutal because his aunt had told him beforehand that he was not like Tywin. Jaime wanted to then be extra Tywin-like. Now there is actually a lot more going on in the scene in the book besides the threat. The singer who sings the Rains of Castamere is actually known by Edmure. The singer's name is Tomo Sevens, who made Edmure hate him because he invented a song about Edmure's penis being a limp, floppy fish. This of course adds more insult to Edmure, but Tomo Sevens is also a secret member of the Brotherhood Without Banners, meaning any cruelty out of Jaime's mouth would likely make it back to Lady Stoneheart, the undead Catelyn. Additionally, Tom is left alone with Edmure after Jaime leaves. Thus, we have no idea what information is communicated between them. So here in the show, Edmure then comes to the castle and commands them to let him enter. Blackfish protests that it's a trap, but the guards follow Edmure's command. Edmure then coldly looks at the Blackfish and orders the surrender of the castle. Brienne goes to flee, but Blackfish wants to stay and fight. He is killed off screen, and Jaime watches as Brienne sneaks away in the night. Now in the book, Edmure takes control of the castle between chapters, so we aren't sure exactly what happened. We know that the castle does surrender, as it does here in the show. However, the big difference is Edmure helps the Blackfish escape and is quite pleased about it. Edmure lifts the gate and the Blackfish is able to swim away in the middle of the night, sparking much fan debate about where the Blackfish went. The Vale being a logical place as he has allies there, but others thinking that perhaps Blackfish has joined the Brotherhood Without Banners or is gathering forces in the Riverlands. Next we go back to Slaver's Bay where the Great Pyramid is getting hit by incoming projectiles from trebuchets or catapults from the Slave Master's ships. The crew argues about what to do, and Grey Worm decides that they should hold up and defend the pyramid and wait for the slavers to come to them. They then hear something on the roof, and they find that Daenerys has returned just in the nick of time. Now in the book, the slavers do actually attack Meereen using trebuchets. However, the trebuchets do not carry regular projectiles, but instead dead bodies of people that died from dysentery. Barristan, who is running the city, decides on the opposite strategy of show Grey Worm. Barristan has the ability to hold up in the city for months, but because he doesn't understand disease too well, he decides he cannot stay from the incoming pestilence from the trebuchets. This pestilence, by the way, is meant to parallel the famine that is affecting the forces up at Winterfell. Barristan ends up exiting the city with his army, which is also what Bolton forces end up doing up north. Next we get an extra scene of the Hound coming upon Beric Dondarrion and the Brotherhood Without Banners, who are executing Lem Lemoncloak and company for slaughtering that village. The Hound wants to kill the men himself, so Beric and the Hound bargain, and the Hound gets to kill 2 of them. Beric and company then sit with the Hound and try to convince him to join them. The cold winds are rising up north, they claim. Now, we are way off the book story on this front. So in the book, the Hound, if alive, is likely the gravedigger on Quiet Isle, living at peace among pacifists. And the Brotherhood Without Banners also has a very different story. So back in the 3rd book, A Storm of Swords, Arya escapes from the Brotherhood Without Banners. However, later she has a wolf dream and enters Nymeria, where she comes upon Cat's dead body. Arya, as Nymeria, screams for Cat to wake up, but then the Brotherhood without banners comes upon them, and Arya and Nymeria runs away. According to Thoros of Myr, Beric then kisses Cat and transfers his life to hers. Beric dies, and Cat comes back to life as Lady Stoneheart. However, there is some debate among fans whether it was actually Beric doing this, or if Arya Nymeria was doing it, as she was also commanding Cat to live again. Whatever the case, the Brotherhood without banners, or at least half of them, decide to follow Lady Stoneheart and start shifting their focus from protecting the Riverlands to enacting revenge against the Freys, even if a particular Frey isn't all that guilty. In fact, A Storm of Swords actually ends with the Brotherhood without banners hanging Freys. And it's this faction of the Brotherhood who captures Brienne and commands her to kill Jaime. However, there is another half to the Brotherhood that's shrouded in mystery. While Thoros, Lem Lemoncloak, and Tom of Sevens join Lady Stoneheart, another group with Beric's squire, Anguy the Archer, a man named Greenbeard, and a few others do not follow her. And we have no idea where they have gone. Some even wonder if Beric actually died. He might still be leading them, as we only have Thoros' word on him dying. Anything is possible, really. And finally, we get to the Arya story, where Lady Crane is taking care of Arya, and then finds an intruder in her house who murders her. Arya wakes up to find the body, and the waif is waiting for her. Arya then jumps out the window, and a huge chase occurs. The two run and cause a ruckus in the city before the waif enters Arya's hideout. Arya turns out the lights, and then we cut to Jaqen at the House of Black and White, finding the waif's face on the wall. Jaqen declares that Arya is finally no one, but Arya says that she's Arya Stark and declares that she's going home. Now, nothing like this has happened in the book, and it seems very unlikely that it will. In fact, in Fire and Blood, George R.R. Martin appears to throw shade on the show by specifically describing a messy and noisy assassination in history, and then declares that it couldn't have been the Faceless Men, as they are very competent and keep an extremely low profile. So it seems doubtful that Arya will be part of a citywide chase scene. And that's all for episode 6.8. See you in episode 6.9.